What if the mosquito that bit you last night never actually flew to your house? What if it was born there, in your gutter, in your flowerpot saucer, in a bottle cap of rainwater you walked past 40 times this week and never noticed? That sounds impossible until you understand how little water a mosquito actually needs. A single female can lay up to 300 eggs, and she can do it in less water than you could hold in your cupped hand. Not a pond, not a puddle in the yard, a cupped hand, which means the war against mosquitoes was never happening in the sky above your yard. It was happening in a bottle cap you forgot about 4 days ago, and that number, 4 days, matters more than almost anything else in this story. Because that's roughly how long it takes for an egg laid in standing water to become a flying, biting adult. 4 days, not 4 weeks. 4 days. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Every time a truck rolls down your street fogging the air, it kills the mosquitoes that are already flying. The adults, the ones you can see. But it does nothing to the thousands of eggs sitting quietly in the water underneath your deck, waiting to hatch the moment the fog clears. You pay $80 for a spray. And 3 days later, you're right back where you started. Now here's where this gets interesting. Centuries ago, on the other side of the world, a country figured this out and built an entire system around it. Not a system of chemicals, a system of understanding exactly how a mosquito thinks, breeds, hunts, and hides. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is the Japanese method for a mosquito-free yard. And it starts with something you'd never expect to be a weapon. A bucket. Not just any bucket. A trap disguised as an invitation. Here's how it works. You take a 5-gallon bucket, fill it about halfway with water, rainwater is best, and toss in a handful of grass clippings or dead leaves. Not to be lazy, to make it smell exactly like a place a female mosquito wants to lay her eggs. Decaying plant matter releases the same chemical signals as a natural pond. To her, this bucket looks like paradise. She has no idea it's a coffin, because on top of that water, you sprinkle 1 spoonful of a powder that costs about $17 at any hardware store. It's called BTI. And what it does sounds almost too selective to be real. BTI kills mosquito larvae, and fungus gnat larvae, and blackfly larvae. That's it. That's the entire list. It does not harm bees. It does not harm frogs. It does not harm your dog drinking from a puddle. The reason is almost poetic. The toxin only activates inside the very specific alkaline gut chemistry of a mosquito larva. Nothing else on Earth has that exact biology. The World Health Organization has approved this same compound for use in drinking water reservoirs in countries fighting malaria. Think about that for a second. A substance safe enough to put in drinking water, and lethal enough to end an entire mosquito generation before it's born. 1 spoonful, 1 bucket, and every egg laid in that water dies within 24 hours of hatching for up to 4 weeks straight. Set 3 of these around your property, hidden behind sheds and under hedges, away from where you actually sit outside. Total cost, about $25. Total effort, 1 afternoon. But here's the twist. The bucket only catches the eggs that get laid there. What about the mosquitoes already flying around your yard right now? The ones already born, already hunting? For that, the Japanese had a second trick. And it involves tricking a mosquito's most important survival skill against itself. Mosquitoes find you using carbon dioxide. It's how they track a warm-blooded animal in total darkness. So what if your bucket could breathe? Take a $20 automatic fish feeder. the kind aquarium owners use to feed their tank while on vacation, and mount it to the bucket lid. Instead of fish food, load the compartments with a dry mix of active baker's yeast and sugar. Set it to drop a portion every other day. When that yeast hits the water, it produces carbon dioxide. Real, breathable, mosquito-attracting carbon dioxide. Suddenly, your bucket isn't just a nursery trap. It's imitating a human being sitting in your yard. And every adult mosquito within 50 feet abandons you and comes looking for the bucket instead. Add a teaspoon of soap to break the water's surface tension, so anything that lands sinks. Add a small solar blue LED, because mosquitoes are drawn to blue light at dusk. For about $30, you've built something that does what a $600 propane mosquito trap does. The BTI ends the breeding. The CO, 2-trap, ends the biting. Run them side by side, and you've closed both doors at once. But even this, as clever as it is not the foundation of the whole system. The real foundation is something almost embarrassingly simple, and it starts with a walk. Picture a Japanese household on a Saturday morning in early summer. Someone walks the perimeter of the property with a small bucket, tipping out every container holding water. The flowerpot saucer, the fold in a tarp, the bamboo stump cut at an angle that traps rain, the crease where the garden hose meets the spigot. This ritual has a name: bofura taiji. It translates roughly to mosquito larva extermination, and it has been the backbone of Japan's public health mosquito strategy for over 100 years. Every year, before the rainy season begins, the Ministry of Health reminds households across the country to do exactly this. 10 minutes. Once a week. And here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. Entomologists call this principle source reduction, and university research from Rutgers to Florida has confirmed it again and again. Consistent weekly source reduction reduces biting pressure more dramatically over time than spraying ever will. Because here's the math nobody tells you. A single female mosquito living just 10 days can lay 300 eggs. One undisturbed flowerpot saucer becomes hundreds of new mosquitoes within 2 weeks. Drain that same saucer once a week, and you haven't repelled a mosquito problem. You've shut down the factory that makes them. And you can feel it happening. The first week, you're still swatting. By the second week, the porch goes quiet at dusk. By the third week, you're sitting outside, and you realize you stopped noticing the slapping sound on your arm days ago. For the water, you genuinely can't drain. Clogged gutters, low spots in the yard. There's a second form of the same larvicide, sold as small brown rings called mosquito dunks. One ring covers about 100 square feet for 30 days. Toss one in the gutter on the first of the month, May through September, and the cost is nearly nothing. So now the water is handled. The breeding has stopped. But there are still mosquitoes in the air right now, born last week, hunting for blood tonight. And this is where the story takes a strange turn, into a 130-year-old invention shaped like a spiral. Walk into a rural Japanese home in August, and on the porch you'll see something small, green, and smoking gently. A coil about the size of a tea saucer hanging from a metal stand. It's called a katori senko, mosquito-catching incense. It was invented in 1890 by a man named Eiichiro Uyeyama, who took a natural chrysanthemum extract called pyrethrum, something Japanese farmers had already been using as an insecticide, and figured out how to bind it into a spiral that could smolder slowly for 7 hours straight. One coil, one evening. The patio is yours. The active compound, pyrethrin, works by disrupting the sodium channels in an insect's nervous system, a mechanism mammals process and clear from their bodies within hours. The World Health Organization classifies natural pyrethrin as one of the safest insecticides ever identified. And the smoke from a single coil clears a radius of 10 to 12 feet for about a nickel an hour. You can buy the same coils today in any hardware store for around $8 a box. If you'd rather skip the smoke entirely, the same plant compounds, citronella, lemongrass, peppermint, clove, rosemary, can be mixed with water in a garden sprayer and applied to the underside of leaves, the eaves of a porch, the back of a woodpile. Not the open air. The oils evaporate too fast for that. What you're actually targeting are the hiding spots, the places adult mosquitoes rest during the day, waiting for dusk. Hit those, and you hit the entire resting population in one afternoon. So the smoke handles the patio. The spray handles the shrubs. But there's one place left. The one place you actually need to be completely mosquito-free. And it's the one room where a single mosquito can undo everything else you've done. Your bedroom. Picture a Japanese home before window screens existed. A futon laid across the tatami floor. And above it, suspended from 4 hooks in the ceiling, a translucent green canopy of woven mesh that drapes all the way to the floor. This is called a kaya. Woven from hemp or rami, it hung in nearly every Japanese household for 1,000 years. And it solved the bedroom mosquito problem, not partially, completely. Because the principle isn't poison, it's a barrier. And a barrier can't fail the way a chemical can. This isn't folklore either. Modern public health programs still distribute insecticide-treated bed nets across malaria regions today, and the World Health Organization has documented that these nets cut infection rates in protected populations by roughly half, making them one of the most cost-effective health interventions ever measured anywhere in the world. You don't even need the insecticide for ordinary backyard mosquitoes here. You just need the mesh. A simple bed canopy costs between $20 and $50. Hang it once, tuck the edges under the mattress, and sleep with the windows wide open on the hottest night of summer without a single bite. And here's something I'll say plainly, because I believe it. I think the bed net might be the single most underrated object in this entire system. And the reason Americans haven't adopted it isn't practicality. It's pride. We associate mosquito nets with poverty, with field hospitals, with somewhere else, some other, harder life. The Japanese never made that association. A well-made kaya was once given as a wedding gift, passed from mother to daughter, dyed a soft green meant to evoke a summer rice field seen through fog. Families stored it folded away for 9 months of the year and brought it out each June, almost ceremonially. There's an entire tradition of poetry written about the way lamplight changes color through that green mesh, about the sound of a child laughing inside one. If you can get past the idea that hanging mesh over your bed is something only other people do, you may sleep better this July than you have in years. Now, every piece of this system so far has been about objects. A bucket, a coil, a net. But the last piece isn't an object at all. It's geometry. Stand outside a traditional Japanese home and look at the space between the house and the garden. The roof extends far past the wall, casting a deep line of shadow. Beneath it runs a raised wooden veranda called an engawa. And beyond that, the garden itself, raked gravel, swept stone, water features placed deliberately at the property's edges, far from where people actually sit. This isn't decoration, it's a filter. Most mosquito species are weak flyers. The common house mosquito typically operates within about 300 feet of where it hatched. Even the aggressive Asian tiger mosquito, now spread across most of the United States, rarely travels more than 500 feet in its entire life. Which means if the breeding water sits at the far end of your property and your patio sits at the other end, distance itself becomes a defense. The Japanese were designing gardens around a mosquito's flight range centuries before anyone had ever measured one. And it goes deeper than distance. Mosquitoes rest during daylight hours in cool, shaded, humid spots. Dense shrubs, tall grass, ivy, leaf litter. They avoid open sun and moving air. A traditional Japanese garden, with its raked gravel and limbed-up trees, simply gives them nowhere to wait out the afternoon. Compare that to the average American backyard. Thick privacy hedges, deep mulch rings, ivy climbing every fence, a tarp over the woodpile that hasn't moved since spring. Every one of those is a 5-star mosquito hotel. You don't need to redesign your yard. Just thin the densest shrubs near the house, clear the deep leaf litter within 20 feet of the patio, keep your BTI buckets at the property's edges, and keep the sitting area itself dry and swept. And then there's the piece of advice people roll their eyes at hardest, right before they thank me for it later. A $9 box fan. Mosquitoes are weak flyers. They can navigate still air perfectly. They cannot push through a moving breeze. Point a small fan at your feet on the porch, and you've created something they simply cannot fly into. The American Mosquito Control Association recommends exactly this for outdoor seating for exactly this reason. I understand why it sounds absurd. You've spent thousands on a stone patio and a teak dining set, and the answer is a plastic fan from the garage aimed at your ankles. But that's actually the whole lesson hiding inside this story. The elegant solution, the spray contract, the fogging truck, the $400 propane trap, is almost always the one selling you something. The ugly, cheap, boring solution, a bucket, a coil, a fan, is almost always the one that actually works. So here's what all of this looks like, standing back from it. The Japanese kept mosquitoes out of homes through summers just as hot and humid as anything in the American South. No trucks, no monthly contracts, no chemicals with warning labels. Just a person with a bucket once a week, a coil of smoke on the porch, a net over the bed, a garden laid out with quiet intention about where the water sits and where the people do. Every method alone solves a piece of the problem. Run them together, and the problem simply stops existing. You don't need to start all 6 at once. Pick the one that matches your worst problem tonight. Being eaten alive on the patio? Light a coil. Yard producing mosquitoes? Walk it this weekend with a bucket and drain everything holding water, free, and the single highest leverage move available to you. Can't drain it? Set a BTI bucket beside it. Mosquitoes getting into your bedroom at night? Hang a net and open your windows for the first time all summer. Run one method until it becomes automatic. Then add the next. By the end of the season, your bees are still working the flowers. Your dog still drinks from whatever puddle she likes. And you're sitting on your porch in the cool of the evening, waiting for a bite that never comes. Somewhere, a country figured this out centuries before anyone had a name for a mosquito's flight range, its breeding cycle, or the chemistry inside its gut. They didn't need a lab. They just needed to pay attention. Maybe that's the real story here. Not the bucket, or the coil, or the net. It's that the answer was never about fighting harder. It was about understanding something so completely that you never had to fight it at all.